When you hear a teenager casually drop words like riz, skibidi, or even unalive, you may wonder, where do these odd phrases come from and how do they spread so quickly into the vocabulary of young people? That's the world linguist Adam Alexic studies. Alexic is the author of the new book, AlgoSpeak: How Social Media is Transforming the Future of Language. He's fascinated by how slang evolves in the digital age and how words born online can take over real-world speech in months or even weeks.
An example is the word unalive, which you can't say kill on TikTok, so many people instead say unalive. And this actually bleeds into offline, and there's kids in middle schools writing essays about Hamlet contemplating unaliving himself. But that's not actually like new speak, it's just people finding a new way to express themselves.
What makes unalive so striking is that it's no longer just internet shorthand, it's made its way into classrooms and everyday conversations. He points out how even the most ordinary words carry little cultural jokes if you trace them back far enough.
One of the first words I ever did on my blog that I started in high school was the word sophomore. I really like this one. It comes from the same roots as the word sophisticated and moron in ancient Greek. So the sophomore means wise fool. And that's what I mean when I say I got into it for the fun facts. It's just really cool to see that. But at the same time, it tells you something about how people conceptualize sophomores. There's a little story held within it. It is this age where you think you know everything, and at the same time, you're a little foolish about some things.
Language has always been inventive. Every generation leaves its fingerprints in words, whether it's a centuries-old wise fool or TikTok slang spreading at record speed. He says platforms like TikTok and Instagram and the algorithms these companies use to shape what users see aren't just reflecting how young people talk, they're actively shaping it.
There's always been, for example, young people identifying with new words as a way to forge their own identity, as a way to differentiate their identity from adults. At the same time, I think algorithms are bringing us these words faster. They're causing the words to form more quickly because they incentivize the creation of echo chambers that then create their own language. And then they open up those echo chambers just enough to allow those words to spread, but they also compound natural human trends. We've always had trends we've always had in groups, but algorithms push that even more.
Slang is nothing new, of course. Every generation coins its own words, but Alexic cautions that calling something millennial or Gen Z slang misses the larger point.
These labels are made up, Gen Z, millennial. The idea of a social generation didn't exist until the early 1900s, and then over time we begin to think that they're more and more real, and there is no such thing as Gen Z language. In fact, ascribing that label maybe kind of flattens the true stories of where a lot of these words are coming from. In fact, if you go to Wikipedia, you can find pages for Gen Z and Gen Alpha slang. There's no page for millennial slang. There's only a page for 2000 slang. And it's kind of a new thing that we start thinking of slang as such a generational thing. Slang used to be this countercultural kind of phenomenon where it's just not formal language.
And where this slang originates from matters. Alexic points out that today's slang often draws from two main sources: African American English and online subcultures like the manosphere. That tells us something about power, identity, and who drives what's seen as cool. Another way younger generations communicate: emojis. Alexic says they're not just fun add-ons, but in this digital age are words in their own right.
Emojis are words. I can't emphasize that strongly enough. I mean, words come from the increasing abstraction of pictographs, and emojis are just a new pictograph. It's something, you look at it, it holds meaning. That's a word, right? And so just like words, emojis evolve meaning over time. We started out with the laughing, crying emoji to indicate laughter, but among younger people, that became semantically bleached, meaning that it lost its sort of meaning. It became overused and it became thought of as ironic. So then people moved to the crying emoji, and then that got overused, and people moved to the skull emoji, and then that got overused. Now there's like the heartbreak emoji or the wilting rose emoji. So we're constantly cycling between different words depending on the social context, and words really do evolve meanings, as do emojis.
Alexic says that emojis, unlike slang words, have a limited keyboard of options on your smartphone or other device. So how do companies decide which emojis make the cut?
These emojis are being pushed by algorithms as well. The new meanings I was talking about, the wilting rose and the heartbreak emoji and the skull emoji, those were all popularized through algorithmic trends. And it seems like this cycle of moving through different emojis to express irony, that's accelerating. And you see the same thing with other emojis changing meaning. There's a new trend every other week with somebody trying to popularize some emoji or another. But the thing is, these fads die out. Once your grandmother starts saying skibidi or starts using the skull emoji, it's no longer cool and you want to move on.
Slang and emojis can feel ridiculous, even cartoonish, but Alexic argues that it's all part of the cycle. When you look back at phrases like kick the bucket, those might have sounded just as silly once. So what does the future hold for how we speak? Alexic believes that these trends will continue to be driven for many years by social media algorithms and artificial intelligence.
Individual slang words, I don't think skibidi, for example, is going to stay around. Individual slang words do die out because, again, they're tied to meme lifespans. And I strongly believe that they found the most addicting medium to recommend us content. I don't think that'll be going anywhere for a while. So you can pay attention and start seeing the exact same trends with every new word until we find that more addictive medium. And the trends are that there's an in-group that feels like they have a space to use their language. There's a context collapse where somebody reinterprets that in a new setting. And then the words slowly move across these filter bubbles, echo chambers online, are popularized as broad trends, and then are reused by creators because the creators want to tap into a trend. That is a cycle we will continue seeing over and over again until we move on from the algorithm, which I don't think we will for a minute.
He emphasizes that it's not really about the specific slang terms themselves, which will always come and go. As AI continues to expand in use, this technology will play a bigger role in what words rise to the top and become popular in our everyday language.
These algorithms operate on AI. They're run through large language models, and they decide how to recommend content based on deep learning. This is AI. And yes, AI, GPT, that kind of stuff is getting more sophisticated. We're seeing more AI recommended content. We're seeing people start to talk more like ChatGPT. All of this definitely will influence things. I think the algorithms are also going to get more sophisticated. So words like UNALIVE, which are now also censored, they won't last as long either. If anything, AI is going to get better at identifying words in context. It will never be perfect because AI's representation of language is never perfect. But what you'll see is that it will push people to produce more ways to talk about things they want to talk about faster. And if anything, we're going to have more language change going on.
What today's slang really shows us is how deeply technology has threaded itself into culture. Algorithms may feel invisible, but they're steering how we joke, how we connect, and even how we grieve. The story of language is the story of us, and right now, it's being written faster than ever. To learn more about our guest, Adam Alexic, and his book AlgoSpeak, head to viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Viewpoints Radio on Instagram, Facebook, and X. This story was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Gary Price.